This is 10 Questions. I'm Andy Johnson. My guest on this edition of the program is Priya Ganesh-Nantan. She's a campaigner in the fight against neediness. She's given to finding ways of making life easier for people. That's a career. It's a lifelong preoccupation that she has. She has a new campaign called Hubs of Hope. We're talking with her about that, what it means in terms of reaching out to people who are the most needy in the society. Priya, good to have you, and thanks for coming on.
Thank you, Andy. Morning.
How are you?
I'm really good. This morning, I'm really, really good. How are you?
Well, I'm pretty good. I'm better now that we're having this discussion, because when I proposed it, you seemed a bit like you weren't sure you want to talk about it. You know, you seem to be, hesitant about it. But as usual, what I've come to know of you, you rise to any occasion. So we're talking about this Hubs of Hope, and I'm looking at some of what it means. There's something you have called Happier Ever After. I have a take on your name. Let's start with that. Explain what it is.
Okay, so Happier Ever After is my business that I started in the pandemic. I got the name of it's from my name. My name is Priya. Priya Ganesh-Nantan. I see you all have changed my name a little bit there.
Yeah.
But so, growing up, I always say this, growing up, we little girls especially, we conditioned to believe in the happily ever after. You find your Prince Charming and you live happily ever after. And generally, the romantic love is where we place our the happily ever after is how, I don't know how to express that, but to say this, I'm living my happily ever after, and it doesn't look anything like what I thought it would look like, nothing what the fairy tales tell you it would look like, where you have your prince and you live in a castle and you live happily ever after. I am raising my own little prince, and we are baking bread together, and we are going on adventures, and I am really enjoying this life. And 20 years ago, I never would have imagined that this would be my life. But it is, and I'm really happy to be here on this journey right now. So that's the name Happy Ever After. It is a fairy tale. It's an unexpected fairy tale.
Yes.
But it's a lovely fairy tale. I love this life that I have now.
Yeah, and you say that you love doing these things. Where does that come from?
Such a great question. Such a great question. And I had this conversation, a small conversation with my best friend's teenage daughter, saying that sometimes when, as a child, if you feel lost or you feel helpless or you feel lonely or powerless, two things can happen. You get angry and you want to punish people for getting you in that space, or you decide that you don't want anybody else to feel the way that you felt. And I'm not 100% sure, but I will tell you, Gail Ali Bukas, who is the mother of my heart, I talk about her all the time. Gail Ali Bukas, her superpower was love and feeding people. I think I don't know if I had told you the story about the 2 packs of ramen and 4 hops bread. It was like Jesus with the fish and the bread, where she fed like 8 of us that night with 4 hops bread and 2 packs of ramen. We made corn soup, and it was like 1 tin of corn, 2 packs of ramen, and she fed so many people. And now, Andy, like to be able to go out there and meet with people who really going through it. Some people are still recovering from the pandemic. For some people, they did well in the pandemic, right? Their salaries continued, their expenses dropped, but their income remained the same. And some people did well in the pandemic, but some people struggled, some people suffered, and some people are still trying to recover from the pandemic. And food, in Trinidad, I always say this, I've said this to you before, we cannot starve in this country. We cannot starve. There's food everywhere. But for so many people, access to good, healthy food, like you could buy 4 packs of ramen for $20 in the grocery, but what are you really feeding your child? So for me, giving people good homemade bread, made with love, made by hand, that is That is for me, that is a joy for me to be able to do, to be able to do that, my initiative. Oh, can I tell you about the name?
Go ahead.
Okay, so Hops of Hope, right?
Yes.
Is a misnomer because it's not really hops.
Well,
It's
precisely
rope.
because I looked at online and I saw some of the loaves that you put out. I mean, they're huge things. But I just want to intervene a little bit to say what you were saying earlier. It reminds me of an elder cousin I have. Her name is, she used to be Ursula Roach. And I have seen her, share 2 sweet biscuits among 6 people. She had that ability to do that, and each of us got a taste of it, and that was part of just her personality. You could do that. What you're saying sounds like that. You stretch resources such that, in some cases, people get filled with the gratitude of being offered something, whatever it is, in whatever amount. And that comes from some kind of a grace that you're bestowed with, that people like you are bestowed with.
So you said that, and I remembered. So I do outreach in the BSM, you know that, right? It's been 8 years now,
Yes.
and my kids are now big. I have some teenagers now. I have my chocolate is working, and if I have one kiss cake, like not even the one with the icing, not even the pack with the 2 in it. If I have one kiss cake, we will break that kiss cake, and everybody will get a taste of kiss cake. And that's a true story.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the same, I grew up believing where there's room in the heart, there's room in the home. And if it have enough for one teeth, it have enough for 2. All right? I don't subscribe to this. I don't come from a mental space of less or not enough. All right? I believe in abundance. You know that about me. I believe in abundance. It is enough for everybody.
Well, so you say, let's go back to the point you make about there ought not to be any starvation in this country because there's enough to go around. And I think you hung around some people. I want to come to talking about your friendship with the late Norris Dionarine in a while. A marketplace was named after him, again, for his advocacy on these things. And I met you through him to some extent, and I met him through you, and so on. We can get to him in a moment, but let's continue to talk about how do you find it in you to continue to do this. You say you love to bake bread.
I love it. I love baking. I love the feel of it. And Andy, let me tell you, you know me as an activist. You know me as an office person. I've worked in an office for my whole career has been based behind a desk, working behind a computer. Yeah. And I learned to bake bread as a teenager. I was probably 17 years old when I learned to bake bread. My mother's older sister, Auntie Dulcie, she taught me to bake bread probably in 97 or 98. And I've never been a big baker of anything as an adult. And in the pandemic, and this is the story of how the business started. In the pandemic, I could not do anything outside of my home that I could not do without my 4-year-old being with me. Everything that I did in the pandemic, I did with a 4-year-old at my side. So when I looked at my life, and Auntie Gail's daughter, my cousin Marie, she said, what can you do? You need to look at your life and see what you can monetize. What can you do? I'm like, what do you mean? I'm taking care of a little boy. I'm washing his clothes, I'm washing the dishes, and I'm cooking. I'm not going to do any of those things for other people in a pandemic. I'm not washing anybody's clothes in a pandemic. What do I do? And I slept on it. And I realized I was making bread. My recipe makes 2 loaves. And I was keeping one for my home. And I was gifting the other loaf to whichever of my friends at that time would come and drop off groceries or toiletries or market stuff or whatever, because I did not work at the beginning of the pandemic. My last salary was December 2019. We're in May 2024. So I started that business as a thank you. I started baking as a thank you, and from that the business grew. And I remain so grateful that a skill that I learned as a teenager was able to now come forward in my 40s. I started the business at 40 years old to be able to take care of my son. My son just turned 8 in March. October will be 4 years of this business.
Yeah. Um, what is your sense of I want to stay on that a little bit, that point about people ought not to be without something to eat in Trinidad and Tobago when the day comes. Or what is your sense of the extent of neediness and people who probably go hungry in our country? What is your sense of that? How widespread do you think it is?
It is more widespread than I think we appreciate. And I'll tell you, in the course of my life and my career before becoming a mother, I have always been that person. If I see someone putting back groceries at the cashier, like they're checking up and saying, I say, go ahead and I'll pay the rest. I've always been that person, ever since, right? And now in the pandemic, I became that person I sold some bread. I had to check up how much money I had. I went to the grocery and all the cashiers and all the groceries knew me. I'd be like, okay, don't let it go over 200. Don't let it go over 300. Because groceries are astronomical right now. You could go to the grocery and get a little, not even a little basket. You put 5 things in there, 6 things in there, and you have to pay $200-300. How are people making out? And then especially if you come in, if you backtrack, right? And there are people here, working professionals. You put anything you want in your trolley, and you go and you swipe your card, and you don't remember the next day how much you paid for groceries.
Yeah.
That is the disparity between the haves and the have-nots. There are mothers who have to count, and okay, I can't get cheese today, but I want to get eggs because my kid needs protein, right? But then pack soup because I don't feel like cooking. I'm exhausted. I've been working all 12 hours a day for all week. So I'm faced with all these different situations, for moms who have multiple kids, working moms, married moms even, and still struggling. We have people with 2 incomes still struggling because their hours have been cut. They spend all the time in traffic, so they have to pay for childcare. I don't think the conversation to have about how the struggle of feeding children is a small conversation. Because in a time where kids are we have this record number of pediatric cancer patients in this country right now. And you have to ask yourself, what are we feeding our children, right? That is a whole different conversation. But right now, in trying to feed children proper food and the cost of vegetables, the cost of fruits, it's easier. You could spend $20 and get a big bag of snacks,
Mm-hmm.
Nutritional and at 20. But what's the cost of bananas? What's the cost of apples? What's the cost of Portugal? What's the cost of oranges? $5 for orange. What are we doing? What are we doing right now?
What?
And going back to my bread, right? Sneaking in 2 carrots into a loaf of bread, half a cabbage, pimento to get my child to eat vegetables in the pandemic, right? A fussy eater, trying to get him to eat. Now he eats everything. And I don't make bread that my kid wouldn't eat. I would never make a loaf of bread that I wouldn't feed to my child. And to see parents now grateful to have a healthy loaf of bread. I don't put preservatives in the bread. But Andy, I want to tell you how I got the name Hops of Hope.
Yes, go ahead, yes.
Right, so it's a misnomer. So it's not hops, it's rolls, right?
Right.
So
and loaves, yes. Rolls and loaves, yes.
The appropriate ever after is the loaves, and Hops of Hope is something that we partnered. Different people came together, and we have baked between 100 to 200 pounds of bread per month for 2 years at the Chimuk Bakery in Port of Spain. They are an amazing group of people. Natalie Phillips is an amazing, amazing person. The whole team at Chimuk, the staff at Chimuk, they are the best set of people that you could meet, right? So we run that off, and we don't sell the hops. I think you know that. I don't sell hops. So the premise of it is this. I have a lot of friends who join the gym and stop eating carbs, right?
Uh-huh.
They still want to support the business. They still want to support me, because for every loaf of bread that I sell, I feed my child, right? I can buy groceries. That's how my business works. It's that simple. But with the hops, people who want to support but don't eat bread, they say, okay, I'm going to buy a loaf of bread, I'm going to buy a bag of hops, and you can give it to a family in need. You can give it to a single parent home. You can give it to someone in transition who lost their job during the pandemic. I give hops to the shelter in Port of Spain, to the halfway house in Gasparilla, to Serenity Place, which is the rehab down in Cochrane, close to me here in Point Fortin. Well, I give my kids in the Betham. All the time they get, so I stagger. So not everybody gets every time, but my kids in the Betham get every single time, and I just give it to them. And with the Hops of Hope, a friend asked me 2 years ago, Priya, do you make hot cross buns? And I said, no, because only if you want them to be weapons. My sweet dough is not anything that I would feed anyone. And so that's where the idea of the little round something came up. We started around April, around Easter. And I spoke with Natalie about it at Chimook Bakery. And I said I wanted to do a hops distribution. And we pay for the ingredients. That's been our agreement for the past 2 years. I pay her for all the ingredients. All my friends, we put up and we pay for the flour, the sugar, the salt, the fat, whatever, the oats, whatever we need to put in, we pay for the ingredients and we make it and we distribute. So the Hops of Hope, the actual trigger for starting the initiative, right? There was a couple in Princestown.
Yeah.
I don't know if you remember the story. There was a couple in Princestown who committed suicide together. And they left their 2 little children. And I'm still taken aback by that. Like, how hopeless is your situation that you look at all the options in front of you and decide that suicide is the best option? And I thought to myself, people are really, really struggling. And I mean, I was in a terrible situation. I have no income. I can't work. My little boy is with me all the time. I can't do any kind of work outside of the home without my son. It was at a time where children weren't even allowed in public spaces, public offices and this kind of thing. So what was I supposed to do? And I reached out and I started this initiative, and I thought to myself, you know, we really, Andy, as a people, as Trinidadians, the same way that we could hug up and love up for Carnival and have all this, exude all this love out into the world, we have to live like that all the time and be our brothers and sisters keeper, because people are struggling right now.
All right, I want to go back to what you said about, you know, how you work behind the desk for some time, because we were, in daily communication when you worked with the great minister.
The great minister Basant Barra.
Basant Barra for a while.
I love that man.
When I was reporting to him at that time, working in the administration. But you don't get the, but I mean you were doing this stuff on the side of that, or putting equal time and effort into that as well as doing the job you were doing. How do you balance that? How did you balance that?
I have no idea, and I don't. So like right now, exhaustion is my state of being. I am a mother, first and foremost, full-time. That's me. Everything I do revolves around Raiden. I put all my energy into him, and you know how much energy I have because I'm accustomed doing so many things for so many people and trying to fill that gap. And now he gets all of me, and trust me, Andy, that little boy, whew, it's a lot. So being a mother is first and foremost for me, and in showing him the privilege that we have to live in Trinidad, the privilege that he has being my son, having all these aunties and uncles and all these people who love him, all these organizations that I have worked with over the years and if I tell you, in that pandemic, people reached out to me, Priya, are you okay? Are you working? Do you need anything? People who I hadn't heard of in years came to my home. My kid was 4 years old.
Yeah.
Created
And there's
big.
there's some people who engage in this because they feel it's worthwhile to do these things, but then sometimes when they approach others for help, they're very apologetic. You just matter of fact, in way in which you do this thing smoothly, how you approach people and why you approach them and so on. It comes from somewhere that is special.
Thank you. I feel the love, Andy. But yeah, I think you know that about me. If I have to ask 20 times to get one yes, I'm asking 20 times. Because when I make up my mind, that's it.
And talk about how the arrangement with Chimooks came about. Was I'm just asking the question sort of rhetorically because I don't think it was difficult to approach them and to do this. Yeah.
Chimook Bakery is a, I don't know, 200-year-old structure, 100-year-old business. I don't know. They've been around forever.
Yes.
They are part of the landscape of Trinidad and Tobago. And when the founding, I guess, father, Natalie's daddy, he always supported small business. And he always supported people. Yeah? So, so to just come in, I'm giving away the bread, right? We're giving away the bread. So once we get enough money, we pay for the flour, we pay for the ingredients, we give away the bread. That's what we're doing. And just to make a point, like there's no sponsorship here, And we're not looking to be, to have Bmobile sponsorship and Digicel sponsorship. What we're looking for is for the individuals at these companies, at every company, individuals, citizens of Trinidad and Tobago, not nationals of Trinidad and Tobago, people who are resident here, who are moved by the struggle and suffering of others to get involved. This is individual based. So not every month, some months we don't, some months we have to come out of pocket, some months we have to owe for the flour. All right? But we do it, and Chimook has continued to be absolutely fantastic. And I remain so grateful. Natalie is like my big sister. I've known her for a long time, and she believes in this project. The staff at Chimook have been really, I tell you, I give them, they all get bread. So that's, they enjoy the bread, they understand the mission behind the bread. So yeah, I mean, I remain very, very grateful to them.
Do you have a sort of next level to go, or next center of activity, remaining with who you are, finding ways to bring relief and sustenance to some of us?
I mean, yes. And I'm just sharing it here. This is what I've been playing with in my mind. So food is very important to me. I think food, nobody should have to beg for food. I think that people should be able to feed their family with dignity. And I don't think that anybody asking for food should be refused. If you can feed somebody, feed them. Don't judge them. Don't ask questions. If somebody asks you for food, feed them, right? And I feel that now, after the pandemic, after everything that's happened and life adjustments that so many people have had to make, mental and emotional health remains a real, people are struggling. And right now I'm reaching out to my friends to try and make up money for a single mom. She needs to talk to somebody. She needs to talk to somebody. People are struggling. And I reached out to a couple of friends and I said, you know what we should do? Let's go Toko. Let's go Toko and unplug and recharge and reconnect with each other and have some conversations in this day and age with social media and likes and scrolling. When is the last time you really sat, had a cup of coffee, had a cup of tea, and listened to the birds and had a conversation? How are you? When is the last time you asked somebody, how are you doing? When is the last time somebody asked you, how are you doing? How's your head? How's your heart? What's going on? And I feel that is my next mission going forward, to really allow myself to give, to put into this life what I really wanted for myself in the pandemic, which was, a sounding board. My friends held me and held me tightly. Yeah. So mental health is important. I mean, food is important. Food is always important. Yeah. But mental health and emotional well-being, absolutely. I think we need to give that priority.
Yeah. So you're planning what other people will refer to as a retreat to sort of.
Yeah, I want to do one for some single moms. I have some single moms who are really, really struggling. And as a single mom myself, I have a real beautiful support system. It's not easy. It's physically exhausting because it's physically only me. But Raiden gets books, and he has bigger cousins who we get jeans, we get shoes. So we are in the middle of a line. So things come down to us, and then it goes down to the next kid in line. So I don't have that worry in my mind about how am I going to clothe my child, or he needs a new pair of sneakers. He's 8 now. I just ask my friends who have 10-year-old kids, 9-year-old kids, listen, But right now, a retreat for a couple of moms who've been really, really going through it, whose tribe is a little limited, whose community is a little limited. They can't take a vacation. I know people who they fly out every time school closes. Their kids have so much stamps in their passports. And then I have friends who can't even take a staycation. They can't even go to Mayaro for a night. And that's what I want to do. I want to give some moms and some kids, let's go watch some turtles.
Yeah,
let's do it.
Yeah, I'm told we have about 2 minutes left, and I wanted to just go back to Norris Junior for that time. So you're driving along the highway and seeing this name on the marketplace in Macoya. Just talk a little bit about how that came about and how his name and his activism deserves to be preserved.
Indeed, you said we have 2 minutes. You're going to make me cry at the end, man. His sister just passed away,
I didn't know that.
And she was like Raiden's grandma. So I asked all my young people, everybody, like, do you know who's Norris Junior? Do you know who the market is named for? And I speak about him. Raiden speaks about him. Raiden has never met him. This year is how many years? 12 years?
Since he died.
Yeah. I met with Makemba. Makemba Kunle at Studio 66.
Of course.
Yes, and we were talking about it. He was there for the launch when we did the name. Attila Springer was one of the people who were instrumental in that. The National Food Crop Farmers, Glenn Ramjag, they were instrumental in that, in saying, we wrote to the minister at the time, and Basant was the minister at the time, and he granted that, Norris Junior, the Norris Junior wholesale market. And, I was talking to Roma Price, who now runs the Agro-Tourism Center up in Toko, and just about the heroes. Every generation has its heroes. And if we don't talk about our generation's heroes to this generation, then how are they remembered? People live on when we speak about them, Norris Junior and Michael Alls. Like, there have been so many lovely, amazing people who have given of themselves to this country, And even though we don't always speak of them, it doesn't diminish that their contribution they've made an indelible mark. It's there.
Yeah, I remember when he died. He died the morning after he was featured on TV trying to part a fight with people somewhere up in the east, and
Yeah.
before you knew it, and so he went to sleep and died in his sleep. And you talk about Attila Springer at the funeral in Cuba, and she had to be moved away from the service itself because she was shouting food security for Norris. I'll never forget it.
He was a really he was a different human. He had such a huge heart, a huge love for this country, and he had such a fierce amazing spirit that if I could do something to make people's life better, to improve the lives of the farmers, I'm going to.
Yeah,
And
all right.
absolutely.
All right,
There
we're
was no
gonna have we're gonna have to plan a part two with this because this is where we have to leave it pre-Afghanistan.
talk about,
Thank you very
we
much.
still have to talk about the anniversary,
Yeah,
Andy.
we will come
Pops
to
up
that.
was celebrating 2 years.
Yes. All right. We'll mention it. So when it's coming up.
Okay.
All
But
right.
thank you for having me. Thanks for the opportunity.
You're very welcome. See you soon.
Okay, take care, Andy. Bye-bye.
All right. This has been 10 Questions. I'm Andy Johnson. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.